All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we have a special guest here today. It goes by the name of Garvin, was it?
Yeah, Garvin Rivers.
Garvin Rivers. He is the creator of the Edify Hearts Club. And today we are here just going to ask him a couple questions and peek into his mind a little bit. So, Garvin, you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Garvin Rivers. I run the Edify Hearts Club, or it's called just the Edify Hearts. Edify Hearts Club is just the name of the show, the YouTube channel. But um, yeah, and it's a black organization with the goal of um, sort of and firstly, sharing the message of black sovereignty and whatnot, and also it exists to organize a collective of black individuals to hopefully ensure black sovereignty in the future.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I think that's something all of us want in the future. So, you have my full support on that. So I guess the first sort of question I have to ask you is, you know, obviously many problems historically have plagued the black race, obviously. But like, what are some of the major ones you see like harming us today?
So one of the things that I sort of talk about all the time on my channel is this idea that the solution to our problems is just further integration. Uh, if you look at like the civil rights movement, the civil rights movement had good intention, but ultimately, on a foundational level, it was flawed because the goal, instead of, I don't know, ensuring, black people have, sovereignty or no, or less reliant on the government, trying to, ensure blacks have more wealth or power. Instead, it was simply, desegregation, integration, which ended up destroying a lot of the structure that of the little structure that did exist and is still degrading it to this very day. Um, and so I think on a fundamental level, it's this sort of desire for integration that I think is one of the bigger problems currently. Um, but I think like the solution to that is just like that's why on my account I was sort of emphasizing the point that like racism is a permanent thing, and I want to emphasize that because a lot of people have this perception, especially with in the United States and whatever, with this idea that like race mixing is the solution to racism, or not to say that like you know not to say that like that argument has like it's easy to understand why people would think that, you know what I'm saying? But ultimately, I think what we're starting to see is that, and it's the point I made with my video I did on Hispanics and Latinos, is that race mixing, it doesn't necessarily solve racism. Instead, what it does is potentially exacerbate it. Um, and how a lot of like Hispanics, what they are is mestizo, and mestizo is basically European and indigenous Native American, and they call that mestizo. If the average Mexican is mestizo, if they were to do a DNA test, it would be like 50% European and indigenous, and these people are super racial. They're super, they're super racially minded and whatnot. They're not like post-racialist. Um, and it's important to sort of acknowledge that you know uh, racism is a permanent thing. There on the horizon. What is are we seeing a solution to racism? Are we seeing racism die? I'm not seeing that, and that's sort of the point I want to emphasize. I wanted to emphasize. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. During the civil rights movement, the way we're taught about it in school, at least, is you know, someone like Martin Luther King, right, who I'm sure had very great intentions, right, but obviously his message is pushed a lot more than someone like a Malcolm X. You know what I mean? Malcolm X's message was, and even some of the black civil rights leaders at the time, they all said Malcolm X's message almost made them uncomfortable, right? Because he was saying what most people were thinking, but we didn't want to come to that yet, if that sort of makes sense. So I'm you know, obviously, like you said, integration has done nothing but make racism become even more rampant in our society, as we can tell today. Um, so I do agree with that. Um, Martin Luther King famously said he's afraid he led his people into a burning building. You know, after his whole "I Have a Dream" speech with the massive push for integration, which I think if you look at it from the U.S. government's point of view, right,
Yeah,
integration was probably the best thing that could have happened to them because at the
bro,
time,
exactly.
yeah, because at the time you have a very angry population, a very serious population in the Black Americans, and then you're dealing with the Soviets, a rising power who would have no issue, you know, arming an angry Black population on your own soil. So looking at it from the American point of view, it's just much more beneficial to have integration as a thing. So
Yeah, and I was sort of thinking like, dude, if America was thinking like 3,000 steps ahead, what they should have done is after slavery, just made just ensured integration, and then like because you see the amount of you see people like Drake, he's mixed, he had a kid with a white chick,
yeah,
that kid is white. If they would have just make that shit legal immediately, bro, it would be over. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
absolutely, absolutely.
Luckily, they didn't do that, so we're
Yeah,
good. But
I mean, I think partly because the freed people at the time were also very anti-race mixing. Because most of the time they were forcibly mixed with. Let's just call it what it is. So that's kind of how we have what we have here. So yeah, no, I definitely agree that capitulating is not the answer for us going forward. And this doesn't mean that, we hate other races or anything. No, we just want our own stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's okay for the white people to have their own stuff. It's okay for the Chinese to have their own stuff or for the Spanish. But when a black person says it's almost foreign, right? It's almost demonic to say such a thing. But you know,
yeah, but the question, people have been saying stuff like that. The question is like, how do you actually, achieve that on a
yeah,
real level? Because in America, because as much as we talk about like racial tension and whatever, realistically speaking, I mean, the Wignats, the white nationalist types, I don't think they're gonna win. They're just not in America. I mean, maybe either. I think they have a better chance in Europe, but in America, they're basically cooked. There's no way they have no path forward. But also, I don't know exactly what the future of Black people in America is.
yeah, yeah,
I always say that like because so many people, I don't think people know, like so many people like race mixing. Like, I didn't even I didn't realize because you and what you sort of see is like what I think is going to happen is America is going to just become like kind of like Brazil, in
yeah.
terms of just being
Which
super racist.
like I said, if you are the CIA or just the top brass, this is the best case scenario. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I
Because
think one of the
continue.
worst things that happened to the black population in America was Obama. Because before Obama, the black population was once again getting pretty pissed off with how they were being treated as like fourth class citizens. And obviously the black population that lives in the most influential and powerful country in the world kind of holds as a beacon to the rest of the black populations around the world. They sort of set the precedent, you know what I mean? So it's like
Exactly.
once Obama came in, and sort of put everybody else to sleep. That was the ultimate like kicker. You know what I mean? That
I think
kind
it
of
was
just
because I mean you're right when you say that because what is the CIA's goal? The CIA's goal. People always assume the CIA's goal is to destroy the black community, and that sounds intuitive, but like what the CIA wants to do is they want to like for example in the 20th century when there was the Black Panthers or whatever what they wanted to do was they wanted to show the world and the black population, look, you can make money, you can be successful financially, whatever. So they wanted people who are like black capitalists and whatnot to show them, hey, look, this is how you can be, this, you can be successful financially, whatever. What they want black people to do is they want black people to buy into the American experience, identity. They want Obama was good for them because it made it so black people feel represented by their government instead of seeing the government as separate from themselves. And ultimately, it's like, I mean, and with the FBA thing, you saw Tucker Carlson. he was like, I'm a fan of these guys. I like this because he has a family that is from the intelligence community. His dad was in the CIA, and why they like that sort of thing is because it's further integration. It's what they want is America to do what like they want like because ultimately people think this is like some like weird statement, but they want America to do well. Like obviously they want America to have cohesion and to be powerful globally. And that might sound like a good thing until you realize what it entails. It entails destabilizing other parts of the world, and it entails infiltrating other governments and whatever. But just to say that yeah, the CIA wants America to be powerful and to have stability. That's the goal. And so, in order to do that, they needed to, even if the black population was oppressed, they wanted them to feel like they weren't. They want them to buy into the American project. And to be honest, I think it's going to work for the most
Absolutely.
part. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it just like with people like the FBA people or whatever, it's just going to work. You know, because what's going to happen with America, I think, is the white nationalists, like white identitarians, they're going to lose the people like the race people. I just don't see a future for them. I think what's going to happen though is in America, I think it's gonna there's gonna be sort of nationalism that takes over, but it'll probably be some sort of civic nationalism, some sort of something like that in America because I just when you sort of look at how the things are sort of playing out, um, I think yeah, I just I'm not
Yeah, man.
seeing.
Yeah.
A lot of black people just want to be a part of America, the Americans. So it's just like whatever, let them, because yeah,
Yeah. I mean, speaking of, we're gonna kind of pivot off on there. Speaking of the FBA people and things of that nature, obviously, right? Are you a Black American?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. I'm African, right? Obviously, you can tell from my name, but there's been a huge sort of push in the past. I want to say past 20 to 30 years to sort of separate the two identities, right? In
yeah,
terms of, like making one side hate the other. And this is on both sides, right? I come from an African family, and a lot of times growing up, I had a lot of my own family members say very stereotypical things about Black Americans that obviously I later found out was not true.
yeah,
And vice versa, obviously. But there's been a huge push to sort of separate the two or to make them hate each other. I mean, just look at a movie like Black Panther, right? That's literally America telling you, hey, if you're a Black American, you should hate Africans. First of all, I think that movie was garbage, right? When I was a
mhm,
kid, I liked it. I was like, oh, explosions, cool, da, da, da. When I actually came to understand understand the message of the movie, this is garbage.
yeah.
This is complete garbage.
How old are
But
you?
I'm 20.
Okay, I'm 22.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So when I actually came to understand the movie, like what it actually meant, it was a white CIA person as the hero. There was an African nation, the most advanced nation in the world, watching whites come on their land and enslave their people while they did nothing. And then
yeah,
they create this conflict where a Black American comes in and they fight and they have this big fight and it just causes a divide and they kill each other in the end. Right. So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
clearly there's been a huge push in media and everything else as we see with the what's the guy's name? Someone like Tariq Nasheed, very clearly a CIA plan. I mean, come on, right? There's a huge push to divide the two, right? I'm a person that believes that unity is above all. If we, the Black race, are to achieve any sort of dignity in the world, we must be able to put away our differences and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera,
yeah,
and
yeah.
put the race first before anything else, right? So why do you think that divide is becoming more and more apparent?
Well, because on a fundamental level, it's like I think tribalism is a natural human thing. I mean, you see, if you take step outside of your bubble for a second and look at other communities, you see you see like Japanese people fighting Koreans and China, in China, or you see, white Americans. I saw this one video of this white chick in France, and she was like, "Oh, I'm European," because she's like, white or whatever. And the French guy was like, "You're not European. You are not European. You are American." And it's like, dang, all right. And so you see this sort of divide, but I think it's just less serious, because they're powerful already. So it's like whatever. We can fight and it's fine because we aren't in this impoverished, oppressed state. And so, it's like, but when it's like two people who like they need to, or two groups that need to work together,
Mhm.
or they'll basically on the underclass forever. It's like more important that they unify as opposed to like, white people or Asians
Yeah, because they already
or
have
whatever
like
who are already pretty have rich countries and whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, so and yeah, so the divide exists because there is like real cultural differences. There just are, right? I mean, and so that, tension lead I mean that tension, especially like because there was like some like, like these like there was like this video of this African dude. I forgot his but he's that guy's like an actual plant. I forgot his name. He's like bald. He said Black Americans don't have culture. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. Does he wear glasses?
Yeah, if you watch his account, that guy literally believes in like race science and shit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, he thinks he's like a Republican American. He thinks he's been no.
yeah. So anyway, when it comes to that guy, he said like in that kind of thing. I saw that video blew up and people were making edits and shit. It's like, you know what, fair enough. Like when things like that happen, it's only natural that tension would arise. And I don't really know what the solution is for there just has to be, like I said, I don't know about I just don't know how to like do stuff for like most black people because if you're the kind of person who like all it takes for you is to see one person say something dumb from another community for you to completely hate on them and say crazy shit. It's just like I don't know how to deal with you. It's the same way either way. It's like if all it takes is for you to see one African or one, Black American person say something dumb and then you're like hating on everybody. It's like I don't know what to say. Like I don't know how to help you because there has to, and especially with edifiers, there has to be this maturity and understanding that there's always going to be people who there's always going to be a diversity in opinion and personality amongst different communities. Like if you overly generalize, especially as a black person, you would think people wouldn't do that, but you can't overly generalize anybody or other communities in the black diaspora. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But people do what they will, especially with people who are like intentionally, stoking the fires, because there's this constant desire to manipulate black people, black because especially because in terms of they want to manipulate black Americans because we're in America and America is supremely powerful and is a global hegemon. So if you can manipulate a minority within the United States, it's powerful. Plus, they want to manipulate Africans because Africans are sitting on a lot of natural resources that are essential to the modern world. So they want to manipulate both. Like you see Russia manipulating Africans, you see the Europeans and the French trying to manipulate Africans, you see Chinese trying to manipulate Africans, you see all these countries like Iran trying to manipulate black people in America with these videos. He's like, I don't know if you saw it, but you saw these black people in America were like, oh yeah, Iran likes us. It's like, oh, you guys are retarded.
Yeah, I
And
know
there's
exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
and so it's just like there's this constant desire to manipulate black people, and ultimately you just have to cultivate a community of people who are smart enough not to be immediately manipulated by random bullshit they're seeing on the internet. Like I don't like if you are the kind of person who just immediately jumps to conclusions based on I don't know how to talk to you, but what do you got to say about it?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. At this point, like I think we all sort of start out as like your average, like like Pan-Africans or like just this idea of global unity with everyone, right? But eventually, what you do realize is that most people, and I mean like about 90% of people, don't think like that and aren't just they just don't want that. You know what I mean? So I think it's like you said, like there was a video you made actually that touched on this, giving the smart people the platform, giving the
Yeah.
platform to people who are mature enough to understand what we're facing, giving the platform to people who put unity of the race above all. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like on that note, I heavily agree with that. I don't think it's even worth talking to people who like, for example, right? Like if there's a very offensive word that Africans use to describe Black Americans. It's
Like
called
a Connor or something.
yeah, that. So it's like when I see people I know talk like that, I'm like, I automatically think you're like a low IQ person, clearly.
Yeah.
or just like just vice versa, right? Like the 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 Africans who think they're like American and that they're better than the black. I'm like, dude, gosh, I don't want to
Yeah,
talk to you, man.
exactly.
So I think, obviously having those who like someone like you or someone like me, like who knows that unity matters above all, especially with the enemies that we're facing at the moment. Unity matters above all. So I sort of having that is, I think that's the only way out, right? Give a platform and give a voice to those people, and everybody else who wants division or whatever, you can go you can go mess off somewhere. I don't really
Yeah,
care.
because the people, I mean, listen, it's just like the people who like actively want, like I mean, they act like actively want to cause division. I mean, I don't know. It's just there's yeah, like you have to just sort of because they can't actually do anything. It's just like all they'll do is just post on the internet because they don't have any real world desires.
No, yeah,
What's
absolutely.
motivating, people is, what's motivating me is like a better future. What's motivating them is division and negative
And
energy. So
yeah,
I don't exactly know. They probably won't stay motivated forever, but they're dedicated, so
absolutely, yeah.
I wonder how many of those people are bots as well
No,
because
yeah, definitely, definitely.
but
There
you don't want to like
is,
compensate all their spots. There's probably like just a lot of dumb people. So
yeah.
you just gotta,
Like, there's definitely a CIA, definitely a CIA little faction there just for that. But I mean, speaking of like a better future, right? Obviously we both want the same thing in terms of just a better future for Black people as a whole. Right? Like my ideal world is a unified Africa under one state, one government, one military, everything. Um, a place that is sovereign for all Black people, Black diasporas around the world. That we're living at peace with the rest of the world, right? We have our own technology, we have our own economy, and we're not being bullied by everybody else, right? That's sort of my perfect world. You know what I mean? But like,
yeah.
what does yours look like? You know what I mean? Is it
Well, for
along the
me, it's
same
like,
cusp or but
mhm. Oh, for me, it's just like, for me, it's similar to that. Not like a one government and or one state in Africa. That's a little much in terms of
yeah.
ambition. I mean, that has literally not been done anywhere. Like in terms of like
Yeah,
one
I
unified
mean,
continent, you know.
the US
But
did it. So I mean, yeah, if they can
U.S.
do it, US did it.
The
50
U.S.
states,
did it in
one
a
military.
way that was a little different, but because what
Yeah,
they did is
absolutely.
they arrived in a land that was already occupied. They basically did an ethnic cleansing, and then
Cleansing
they
and then
moved a bunch of people in. It's a different thing, but I understand what you
yeah,
mean. I think what can happen though is
the union.
the the countries that speak like a same language or something, they can unite. Like the Southern African nations, South Africa, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. They all speak English. They could probably unite. The French-speaking ones, the Sahel region, they could probably unite. But all of them are uniting. I don't know.
I think
Um,
sorry to interrupt you there. Like you're right. I was gonna say a much more realistic version. That was like my perfect a much more realistic version would be like a version of the European Union, but for Africa.
yeah,
So
yeah, I can see that for sure.
An African Union, yeah. But continue.
I think like in studying Africa and African nations and what's going on there, because you see a lot of like people who are in these communities, but they only really talk about white people or America, which isn't really that. This isn't really, most black people are not in America. What's going on in Africa, what's going on in South America with the Brazil and other the blacks in South Africa, what's going on, or not South Africa, in South America, what's going on in Africa. And what you sort of notice is, yeah, there's still issues with tribalism. There's still issues with, like in South Africa, I saw, a bunch of Nigerians and people from Zimbabwe were moving into South Africa, and the South Africans were literally like mad as fuck because they don't like immigrants apparently. So it's just like, you see, like in looking at in Africa, you see issues. I wonder like it's one of the bigger issues you sort of noticing is like unemployment, like is because especially in Southern Africa, like South Africa, youth unemployment is like 60, it's like the highest in the world or the second highest. Zimbabwe, it's not as bad, but it's pretty high. And so what needs to happen there needs to be job creation. And what creates jobs? You need people to move in there and start businesses. You need people to move in there, start industry, start, people need to, provide jobs because, the government can't provide all the jobs. So That's what I think I wish that Western blacks or whatever were more interested in like building things in Africa because that's really important right now. Because and this is also a time that you could get like supremely wealthy doing that if you were to do it correctly. You know, if you were to go to one of these areas that are literally need jobs, they're asking, Black Americans because they want money, they want investment because they understand how important that is for job creation. They have these sky high youth unemployment, and sky high youth unemployment causes things like crime because a bunch of young people who don't have anything to do because they have no jobs, they start stealing things, they start committing crime. So like, yeah, if you could go there and like provide them a service, that's what I think, blacks in the West should do instead of like being obsessed. Because you see like so many of these people, they're obsessed with just arguing with white people on the internet. And I understand that to some degree, but it's like, listen, man, we have real problems we're gonna solve, and this is part of it, What you need to do is export our ideology over there. You know what I mean? Because I've been studying it. You sort of see like there are literally like there was this video that was about was it Uganda? It was like Ugandan real estate or something. And all the real estate people who own these buildings are all like Asian, like Indian or Chinese. And it's like, okay, well, they're going there and they're starting businesses and they're buying up stuff. Why are we doing that? That's what I need blacks to do. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, right? Like, obviously, like you mentioned, going over there and creating all these opportunities kind of gives us leverage in the things we can do in the world, right? Obviously. But also that sort of brings up another interesting subject, capital, right? Money. The world runs on money at this point, right?
Yeah,
So,
of course.
I mean, having like obviously there's been an effort to keep black people poor literally everywhere. You know what I mean? From discrimination, from redlining, from if I have my hair like this and I go to an interview, I'm much less likely to get hired than somebody who has short hair or something, right? So
Yeah.
obviously things like that have become an issue. But like you mentioned, right? Black people gaining capital and moving into Africa to sort of, provide these opportunities. Who, if I had to guess, the black people would have much more of the black people over there's interests at heart than like say an Asian or like a European or something, right?
Yeah.
So having that capital to sort of move out there and do the things that we need to do, I think is very important. You know what I mean? So like, in what ways do you think the black people amongst the West and just all over the world in general could gain capital? Because, you know, obviously there's like the most basic route, education, get a good job, and then start your own company or something like that. But people don't do that as much often. So it's like what ways do you think we can acquire the capital needed to sort of achieve that sort of goal?
Yeah. So what you want to do is, firstly, you need to understand that it's not just about you as an individual, it's about a community of people. So if you look at like the Jewish community, how did they build wealth over generations, right? They collaborated. It was about economic insulation. So what they did is they had their own banks, they had their own grocery stores, restaurants in their communities. And so, like, let's say a Jewish person would have a job working at a factory. They would get a paycheck, and then that money wouldn't leave the Jewish community, would circulate the Jewish community for a long time before leaving. But with black people, we get a check and we go to Target. We go to, you know what I'm saying? We get a check and we go to some white-owned store, some Jewish-owned store or something. And that's sort of the problem. Like, what are the black-owned stores that what are the black-owned things that we can support? And what needs to happen is people need to create these things and they need to create them at a high level. Like, they need to be good, high quality, and people will want to support you. Because, blacks, we want to support blacks. I mean, I started making content very recently and have support somehow. Like, I was kind of not, didn't think I would get any. I was talking to, Comey. I was talking to Winter. I was talking, that guy Antonio Speaks. I don't know if you know him, but um, he
I
likes some
think
of
I
my video.
do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
he
he
has like
the dude with the dreads and the sunglasses?
no,
Or
that's Winter. Antonio Speaks. He does videos on YouTube. He has dreads. He does videos on racism. He has like 100,000. He gets like a good. He gets like 100,000 views for a video or something. You probably seen some of his vids, but um. He like likes him like he throws like if you, we can create a community, people want to support other black people. So um but yeah, I think but realistically speaking, you need to get money by any means necessary, so whatever if you have some skill, if you have a way of garnering wealth and not only wealth but also influence, that'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. You know, I'm in the space of we call it. I like science and technology and things of that nature. So, that's sort of the route I took because I do believe in the future, obviously, science and technology and all the other things would be very, very important for just our defense in general, right? So I like things like that. But on that note, I have realized that there's a lot of people amongst us who don't really see the importance in like things like science. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
On
yeah.
on one of my videos, somebody asked me, "How does knowing the languages of the universe, chemistry, mathematics, and physics correlate to military power?" And before I even made that video, I sat there for 30 minutes. I'm like, how does this person think everything that's flying around when in the U.S. Air Force was made?
It
I
has
think,
industry, like yeah, industry, you know, finance, like all these things they
yeah,
rely on in the industrial sector. Do you know how
exactly,
steel is made? Do you know what steel is used for?
exactly.
Tanks,
So,
artillery shells,
I
whatever.
mean,
Yeah.
why do you think there's just so much uninterest in the languages of the universe?
I mean, there's been a sort of decrease in interest in science and technology in general, you know. So what you sort of see is like people are more interested in being content creators, which is I mean, it's like I understand it. Like you want to make money on the internet, it's very easy. Most people are not going to be scientists. I mean, that's not true of any people. But just to say that, you know, like someone like who says like, but the thing is, I mean, there are plenty of blacks who are interested in these things. The reason why, I mean, that guy it's just not his thing. His thing is something else. His thing is, I don't know. But yeah, it's like, when you look, but this is like true of people in general. Like right now, you see people wanting to be content creators. I think like the guy, Clavicular, I think he's gonna have a huge influence on like white guys. Like he's gonna like so many white guys are gonna try to emulate him. And oh my God, it's gonna be fucking hilarious to see. But
Definitely.
when it, like you're seeing like people just want to be content creators. They want to because they understand. Look, people like Clavicular, he's making 20K a day revenue off a stream every time he streams. People who are rappers, they make 10K a show. They get hella girls. They're famous. They get adoration. It's like when I mean it's like it's hard to like have all of that available as sports players. It's hard to have all of that available, but also like people want to be like in lab coats and also people feel like you know it's like we already have like a lot of innovation technologically. We already have a lot of science and stuff. So it's like people don't feel motivated to contribute to it because it feels like, oh well, we have
Yeah, but
like
not
AI
for
is
black
taking
people.
over. Huh?
Like in the reason I said because all that innovation and technology, it's not for black people. You know what I mean? These
What
are
do you mean?
all in white countries. So it's
Oh
like
yeah,
when I see those who are like just not interested, I'm like, why not? But it's like you said,
true.
everybody has their own thing. But I don't know.
Blacks, yeah, we gotta like there should
A
be
lot.
people who
Like
understand.
there's a lot of projects I think the black race should do very at least in my lifetime. Obviously
Like what?
one like I want us to build a large hadron collider. That's just number one. I want us to send some sort of satellite into space, or just land on the moon. Something is that it's simple. Obviously, it's not easy, but it is simple, right? Just things like that. But you know, there just seems to be no interest at the moment. So obviously, we know that there's many issues that plague us, but I don't think it's completely over yet. I don't think we should give up hope yet. So just what are sort of your ideas of how we should move forward as a people?
Okay, so the with the thing that's matters the most right now is sort of just waking people up and consolidating with other like-minded black people to revitalize your spirit. Like because a lot of people who are smart, they feel like damn, like they're inundated with the stupid, FBA shit. There may be like a lot of people like if you look at like how what Africans say about their governments, they feel hopeless. They want to move to America. They don't move to Europe. They want to abandon Africa. You know what I'm saying? And so what needs to happen is like-minded people need to come together and we need to talk about these things. It's essential. to revitalize hope in in the black race. You know what I'm saying? So that's like step one to me. Um, and then we can start making more definitive actions. We need to start wealth building as well, building companies, businesses. Um, I think I want people to who maybe have I want some people to sort of hide their power level, as the Wignats say. You know what I'm saying? I like that term. But when it comes to the people who are like people who can like make an argument and convince large amounts of people of something, they need to be making content. They need to be spreading the message. And I really think that it's really important to emphasize that further integration into the society or whatever is not the solution to black problems. And also, yeah, like another big contention of people that have an issue with what I say is leftists. Those are like the number one people. So it's gonna be like, because honestly, far right people agree largely with what I'm saying. I'm not gonna lie, but it's the leftist people who because what I'm doing is I'm questioning their foundational worldview of socialism, because the concept of socialism is a stateless class of society. I want a strong, black controlled state. I don't really want a stateless society because I believe that would cause problems for not only blacks but for the entire planet. Um, and I don't believe that that's the solution to the problems. I think like the problem with leftists is they assume that they sort of assume that like their worldview will eventually win, but I just don't believe so. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think moving forward, as the world becomes more racialized and just people become more violent towards black people, because there's a lot of people on the planet, resources are starting to run low. Like obviously with the recent war, we're seeing what's going on here. So, you know, I think more and more of our population who understand what needs to be done, right? Who are like they're smart individuals. They got a good head on their shoulders. Those of us who know what needs to be done should be pushed to the front, because you know once those people are to the front and they lead a foundation, like history tells us, everybody else is gonna follow, right? So once that happens, I think you know there's nothing much else left, right? Obviously. Now, sort of the last thing I wanted to ask you was, obviously we're talking about like power and whatnot, but I think a lot of people misunderstand what power actually looks like, right? So what does power look like to somebody who wants the sovereignty of black people?
all power is a control is self-determination, control over the resources, the culture and whatnot of a particular nation or state or whatever. So if you have, let's say, like in the United States, someone like Elon Musk has a lot of power. In a capitalist society, money is power because you can use that money to buy things that control the culture. Like he used his money to buy Twitter. He controls a lot of industry. He was a part of the government for a while. If you look throughout like history, what the most powerful person was someone who had a lot of private ownership, a lot of business ownership, but also someone who had a lot of political, like political power in terms of they were elected or they were appointed to a high political position. So, like the most powerful person would be like if Elon Musk became president. And so, understanding the relationship with wealth, capital, ownership of land, ownership of resources, the allocation of resources, and also the ability to make political decisions in terms of policy and who can acquire resources, what to do with those resources. Understanding, these sort of two things is essential. So, um, yes, like one of the most powerful people on the planet is like Peter Thiel, because he has a lot of, he's the reason why, JD Vance is the vice president. He's the reason why a lot of the things that exist in the American government right now exist, Um, that's power, having the ability to make decisions, control the culture, control the resources. And so understanding that is essential. I think the problem with a lot of blacks is what you sort of notice in black people globally is we have very little attraction towards actual power. And so what I mean is like in Jamaica, or not Jamaica, but in Guyana, there's the Indo-Guyanese and the Afro-Guyanese, and the Indo and Guyana is in South America, and the Indo-Guyanese are Indians, and Afro-Guyanese are Africans or whatever. And there's this racial tension that exists between these two ethnic groups in this country. And the reason and what you sort of typically see with, and this is true in the Uganda, there are a lot of Indians there as well. There are Asians all throughout Africa right now. There are white people in South Africa. And the relationship you typically see with blacks and other races and within the same state, whenever blacks and other races exist in the same country is, the other races control banking, they control politics, they control finance, they control these critical industries, and they own a disproportionate amount of businesses. We don't. It seems like a lot of blacks they're more satisfied in being employees or satisfied in being workers or satisfied in just getting a paycheck and then using that paycheck on whatever. Like during the coronavirus, blacks we got a stimulus check at this like black and white people they got a check, they kind of saved it like a chunk of the time. We spend it on TV, shoes, whatever. We don't want power. We don't want ownership. We don't want these things. We just simply want commodities. We want to be consumers. We want to be workers. And that's not power. Working for somebody is not power. Simply using all your money to buy commodities is not power. And yeah, so, wanting instead of wanting ownership and political power and large amounts of capital, instead we want social rights or whatever, like social programs or something from the government. That's the weakness. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think largely what it is that we've become so colonized that the idea of black people having actual influence in the world or black people having actual power that isn't like some flashy rapper style whatever is foreign, right? It's almost demonic to have like a black person want power like Jared
I,
Kushner has power. You know what I
I
mean?
think part of it is that as well, but I think a lot of it is like we've become so like after the civil rights movement, the sort of caricature of a black person is a black person with a sign protesting for something, an activist, someone who's like calling for an end to whatever racial issue is currently plaguing them. And because of that, we look at like anybody who has a desire to actually have power, like true power, not simply be, culturally relevant or something. But we look at people who have a desire for true power. We look at them with skepticism. We look at them like they're betraying their race or something whenever they decide they want to, actually, garner true actual economic power. We become like one with like socialism for some reason, even though realistically speaking, that wouldn't really serve black people. But still, there are many socialist states that exist and have existed that were that discriminated against blacks because ultimately, this is a socialist belief. Capitalism is not the thing that's keeping racism alive. It is racism is a natural thing that will always exist, and that's why I keep trying to emphasize the permanence of racism. So, and I need to emphasize that so people start to see it like how every other race sees it. Every other race, they hire their own race. They want to own businesses. They want to own capital. They want to gain political power and help their own people. But for some reason, we are the only people who think that the solution is an end to racism or an end to racial thinking or ethnic thinking. That is not the solution. The solution is simply to put your group is to simply have loyalty to your group and put them as in a good position as possible globally and and want the best for black nations. Every other culture, every other people understand that except us for some reason. And I think that's the critical issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like if you look historically to every population that's become powerful in the world, like I was used when the Europeans first landed in Africa, the concept of whiteness wasn't really an established systematic thing until it was time to take away the rights of people who were darker than them, right? So on that level, if you look at it from that lens, you can see that they were strong and we were weak, simply put, right? Like we were weak in terms that like instead of coming together and unifying ourselves as one race to be powerful, to be strong, to project power, to have actual sovereignty and protection from any evils that we may face, we were too busy fighting each other. So when the Europeans coming in, they give this tribe guns to go and fight this tribe, and then they sell this tribe off, and it creates a whole chain reaction, obviously, that we saw that went on for 400 years. But I think with the new generation coming up, Gen Z, some of them at least, um, like you said, a lot of them have become like libertarian kind of people, which is fine, all right. But I think some, right, are just starting to see the way the world works there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? And sorry, excuse me. We obviously need sovereignty. We obviously need power in the non-conventional way that we're used to. So I think that's where the world's headed. I think more and more people will, you know, begin to wake up, as I like to put it. Maybe someone watching this video will share the sentiment of everything that we've talked about, and will reach out to you or reach out to me or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that's all I have for today. Do you have any sort of closing remarks to anybody who might be watching this video, and
Um,
sort of things like us?
hey man, if you're watching this video and you resonate with it, like I said, grow true, master the system master the global system, become powerful within it, and then use that power to actually help your race, not help the world. We're not, I'm not like this is not like a commie thing. It's not like oppression, freedom for all people or no people. We understand that the entire world has anti-black sentiment. We're not, foot soldiers for the entire planet. We're not, these like people who's trying to unify with everybody. We want to unify with blacks because we're struggling to even do that. Why would we unify with everyone? We can barely unify with each other. We need to unify blacks, use your wealth and power that you accumulate from the system to help blacks in America and Africa and in Europe, wherever, in South America. And yeah, that's what we need to do. We don't need to you know, do literally anything else, you
Right.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And to sort of add on to that, I think everybody watching, if you're somebody that's you had these sort of ideas for a while, and you just don't know where to share them. There are communities out there for you. I have a TikTok. I will link it down below. He also has a TikTok, or any other socials you want to reach us at. You can do that. But like you said, focus on gaining a lot of capital, because right now we just don't have that much power. Um, Focus on gaining a lot of capital. Focus on sort of expanding your reach and just helping others that look like you, because the entire world literally doesn't like us for absolutely no no reason. So there's no point in trying to have arguments with like somebody who's online and is an FBA person, or like an anti-black American person. There's no use arguing with people like that, or like racists, or like a white nationalist or whatever. There's no use arguing with that. Your energy is much better spent trying to help people that think like you and ourselves. So that's what I'm gonna leave with. Thank you for showing up today, man.
Hell yeah, man.